Hello and welcome to The Swing. As always, it's your boy HK, and I'm joined by that guy Owais, as always, where we go through the NBA world, swinging through, bringing out what's new, what's hot, and what is really breaking down the sports world in the NBA today. And with that, we have a number of excellent topics to talk to you, starting off with the Raptors having a memorable comeback against the Memphis Grizzlies, 128-113, staving off a dominant performance by an ex-Raptor, Jonas Valanciunas, who dropped a 27-20. But it just wasn't enough, as the trifecta of Norm, Freddie, and Pascal overcame a pair of injuries and ejection, all together to come through and pull out a 128-113 victory. We're also going to swing into one of my shacked in a fool moments of the year as we talk about the Golden State game against the San Antonio Spurs, which ended in, let's just say, less than ideal fashion for the Golden State Warriors. And finally, we get to talk about some of the trade rumors, some of the transactions that are happening, and just how the NBA landscape could be shifted in what could be dramatic fashion as we get into the season. Just before I get Owais to talk, do want to introduce our sponsor, which is Thrive Fantasy. And just very simply, if you think that you know just how good the NBA players are going to do on an individual basis, do you know how many points LeBron is going to score tonight, whether it's going to be a bust night for Joel Embiid? Well, on Thrive Fantasy, you get the opportunity to make money using that gut instinct of yours. Join today on thrivefantasy.com using the promo code, and you will get your deposit matched 100% up to $50 so that you can go ahead and join any of the very many live contests there. It's not just the NBA. There's NFL, there's Premier League, and there's a number of other sports being added on a daily basis. So please go ahead and check it out. Until then, that guy Owais, how is it going, baby?
Yo, it's going great. What a game last night. What a performance by the boys. Really talk about how fighting, the spirit, the identity of this team is showing more and more as the season progresses. And that's something that you love to see as a Toronto Raptors fan. You love to see Pascal score like 30 points and feel confident from beyond the arc. You love to see Norman just look flawless in his game. And you love to see Freddie go do some Freddie things. Steady Freddie. But what you don't like to see, or maybe we do, given yesterday's performance, is Nick Nurse get ejected, right? We've noticed more and more that he's been really, really upfront with the referees and has been, receiving technicals left, right, and center this season. And, I don't blame him based off of what I've seen from the officiating this season, but what a performance by the boys. But another sour spot, if you will, from yesterday's game was the fact that we lost Kyle Lowry due to back spasms.
Yeah.
Now, you may be thinking, another injury in the NBA. You're right. But this could be more catastrophic than you think, because let me tell you, something happened the game before that should not happen. It's not possible. Physically.
What happened? What happened, Owais?
They don't actually work this way. So it was a miracle that happened in this. Anyway, let me explain. I have a diagram for you guys today because we're really excited. I'm a scientist. I took grade 12 biology and physics, so I know what I'm talking about. So here is a diagram. This right here is Kyle Lowry and his thick booty, okay? The law of physics say, and what goes up must come down. But when you have a booty this big, what comes down is threefold of what usually is. And as you can see, Einstein said E equals mc squared times Lowry's booty. That was what was missing. And that's when you get spasms, back spasms.
I think my
by doing a put back layup, and he did it successfully, but to the consequence of the world. Look at this right here. You have Mother Earth. When Kyle Lowry landed last game, the tectonic plates that move around ever so slightly moved around 10 times faster.
Excellent.
And now we have something called global warming.
What?
Anyway, it's really, really sad to see Kyle Lowry go. And that's a history lesson and a science lesson from Owais.
I'm pretty sure one of whoever your chemistry, biology, physics teachers were back in high school are all either rolling in their grave or sleeping themselves, just tearing up because, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had
Tearing
it.
up because it was so smart what I just said.
Excellent.
Anyway,
But yeah,
yeah,
Lowry had that back spasm. Thankfully, doesn't look like it's going to be something that lingers. It is, not on the injury report as of the game that's coming up on the next week. But there could be more Kyle Lowry news.
we can get to that eventually, but let's focus on the game itself. Now, the 3 stars for us yesterday: Pascal Siakam, Spicy P, Fred VanVleet, and Norman Powell. So let's go right into the highlights and kind of see what they did. Right here we have, some Norman Powell highlights, but we actually want to see Pascal because Pascal is our guy. Look at this. Fighting in the paint. And mind you, this is a oversized Memphis Grizzlies team. The defensive effort was there, even if the Grizzlies were ahead a lot. You have to understand the size of the Memphis Grizzlies was very difficult for us to maintain. You saw JV eating up in the paint, right? And we were okay with giving up a lot of 3-point shots because, quite frankly, the Memphis Grizzlies aren't a great shooting team. But yesterday, they were on something for a few quarters, and JV was on something for a few quarters. But now, if we take a look at how these guys kind of performed, specifically Pascal, take a look at how he started to really start draining these 3-point shots. And, when those 3-point shots start to go in and start to fall more consistently, the confidence seeps. Because what happens is the defense now has to check that 3-point shot, even if they don't want to. And what does that mean? Now Pascal has more options. He can drive and dish or just drive to the basket, stop for a mid-range, and it all starts with the shot. Beautiful. And boy, was he on yesterday.
Yeah, no, Pascal, as we said, it's all about a journey for him as far as his, journey from being a journeyman in the NBA, G League champion, getting the opportunity to finally start for the Toronto Raptors, and going from what was purely a hustle guy to getting some finesse into his game. And we are seeing those layers really develop into it, especially when his shot is on from outside. It just opens up so much because the defense can no longer dare him to shoot those. And as far as Pascal was concerned, this was huge because he's coming into that game shooting 2 of 24 from his last 3-point attempts, which is obviously, a huge boon as far as, the opposition defense is concerned. But here, like you said, he gets that space and he is just ready to be able to go. And even if it doesn't, he is just there to be able to fight back, get into it, and get that and one. But what I really like is right there where Pascal would go in, sees that first opportunity isn't there, and he's able to back out and still find, a better play, the open man. And that's apart from the fact that Pascal scored 32 points, he had 6 assists, and the vast majority of them came in the third quarter where they really, really needed some of that, extra juice that he was bringing, because it definitely wasn't happening on the rebounding end. As we said, Jonas Valanciunas was just an absolute monster yesterday, putting, I don't know what kind of revenge game. I don't even know if you want to call it a revenge game 2 years down the road, but he absolutely was feasting, coming back himself, just second game from his long layoff with COVID protocols. Didn't really do much in the first game back, but here where he really broke through, got inside, used his size, and we saw that still it remains to be a huge problem for the Toronto Raptors. But when that happens, there's really only one thing you can do, which is really go ahead and start to really stretch them out, force them to come out of their areas where it's really starting to be that problem. So that's what Fred VanVleet did. Fred pulled the guys out as much as possible, took them away from where they felt they could defend in the paint. And once that happens and you start to pull those out, that's where that gravity gets created. That's where these kind of shots get created because there's just so much disruption that's happening on the inside. So it's really, really nice to see just how the Raptors came and fought back from what was a 15 to 16 point deficit going into the third quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you just take a look at how many guys are chasing Fred VanVleet in that play, particularly, that's 5 guys that chased him. And that opened up Terrence Davis. And honestly, you could have had 2 other options there. Look at this beautiful set piece by the Toronto Raptors, getting Norman open at the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are starting to really fall for the Raptors now. Now, mind you, like, we have on and off shooting nights. So, today we were just on, and big credit to everybody who pitched in. And it was not just, these 3 guys. Yes, they accounted for pretty much like 90 points.
90%
But
of the points.
you see the defense, especially down the stretch, really, really tightened up. And even if they were getting out rebounded, they still fought extremely hard to get those rebounds. And there were a few opportunities where, Memphis could have had putbacks and whatnot. And, the Raptors, 3 guys are flying for the rebounds, and they pretty much out hustled the Memphis Grizzlies. So look at this. Fred's stuck in a situation, but still manages to find a cutting Bembry. Now that's IQ right there, right?
Exactly.
Bembry notices the guy on the perimeter is not really looking at him and is just waiting around, standing around. Opportunity to cut right in and, help out a struggling VanVleet in there in the paint. And, just fantastic work by Freddie. And I think my favorite thing out of all of this was more so a little bit later when he had dished it to a man like Chris Boucher a little bit earlier than this. But look at this steal. I believe it was this one. Or maybe this is the Norman dunk layup. But anyway, point is you saw the intensity, you saw the almost passion and the will to win yesterday. And that's something that we missed this season. Really, we've missed it so much. And I personally think this is going to go down. Here's that dunk that I was talking about. Yeah. This is going to go down as probably a classic for this season. If you want to just really quickly go into, Norman's highlights, it's more just catch and shoots type of stuff. It's fantastic work as well. And anything that you wanted to kind of add in or chime in about either one of those guys' games, feel free.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Norm just continues to make just such huge strides, not only just as a shooter, but more so how he's getting his offense. First and foremost, this is 7 out of the last 8 games in which he's now scored 20 points or more. And that is coming at just the perfect time for the Toronto Raptors, because we know just how important Norman Powell is to the Raptors offense, not only being one of our best catch and shoot 3-point shooters alongside OG Anunoby, but what makes Norm so special is just his ability to slash. And the reason why his ability to slash is so dangerous is because that's what defenders are first and foremost thinking that he's going to be doing. But when he isn't, like I said, then he's able to get that second opportunity. And just as we saw with Fred VanVleet, just as we saw with Pascal Siakam, the biggest portion of development that I'm seeing with all these guys is that level of patience. It's not just bull in a china shop, which is what Norman Powell used to be known for. This, that first opportunity with the drive, if it doesn't work, then he's kind of like, what do I do? We're seeing a lot more of Norm actually surveying the floor, just so much more, knowing that he has the first step to be able to beat 99% of the defenders in front of him, but not just relying on that and that speed to be able to get back. It's a lot more IQ going into his game. And, well, the 3-point shooting has just been something that's been insane this entire season. He's shooting at this point 41% from the 3-point line for the season. And, I mean, if we didn't have a number of other, I guess, big contenders like Christian Wood probably locking up the most improved player, I'd say Norman Powell is definitely one of those guys who has really made huge strides in his offensive game this season and bringing that consistency, which is huge for the Toronto Raptors. But as I said, all in all, much like you said, a very, very solid win for the Toronto Raptors. One to do it facing, what was definitely a whistle that was just being swallowed the whole night, getting the technical fouls, but that galvanized the team. It doesn't always do it. We find often that once the coach goes, you're really starting to feel that little bit of a pushback and, heads start to drop. Not so for the Toronto Raptors, who are getting much more confident as game by game goes by. We're up to 11-13, 2 games away from the 500 mark, and I feel we're going to be passing that very, very soon.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for tuning into the Instagram live video yesterday. We really appreciate you guys being there. Now, a little different situation, more of a humorous situation in a close game where a phenomenal performance by Stephen Curry is almost
let's see what they run here.
Destroyed by a guy by the name of Draymond Green.
Yeah.
Okay.
First and foremost, you've got to see how insane Steph Curry was yesterday on a 32, 6, and 7 night where he was just getting every shot that he wanted. It's just
vintage.
Yeah, it's vintage. What's crazy is that considering how bad Steph Curry started this year from an offensive standpoint, for him to now be turning it around into a close to 50, 40, 90 season, his only difference is that he's 48% from the field. But that is all being mitigated by the fact that he started his first 7 games off the season shooting about 25% from the field, which is like, Steph, what's going on? Is it going to be a situation where the Warriors are lottery bound? Is it going to be, just another complete disappointment? But Steph Curry, to his credit, has taken this incredibly personally. We saw it from the start when Damian Lillard had that game a couple of weeks back where, he almost essentially called out Steph for not being what he used to be, or that he somehow has more range now that Steph does. And Steph responded by a 62-point night. And since then, he hasn't looked back. And just look at this, just dancing around. Steph is my favorite player in the league because he can do that. Oh, my goodness.
That hop.
The rainbows that he can drop are always crazy. But as you said, this was one of those games where the San Antonio Spurs have consistently struggled to be able to get their offense going. And for a night where Steph was able to get where he wanted, where the Warriors ended up losing this game was on the second chance points that they gave up, which led to the Spurs shooting 11 more shots for the game. But more so than that, and for this, I'm actually going to take the audio because the commentary is absolutely hilarious. So, remove this for 1 second, and let me set the stage over here. 103 to 100, 8 seconds to go. There's an opportunity to at least tie the game, to be able to take it to a potential overtime and a win. And what ends up happening? Not this one, but this one. Not that one either.
Free up Steph. So 8.7. Obviously, you need a 3 if you're the Warriors. Damian Lee to inbound. Oh, still looking for Steph. Now Draymond's got it.
What did he do that for?
Draymond shot a 3 with 5 seconds left.
No.
Why? You got time. He thought they were probably going to foul him right away, and he just anticipated it.
That look by Steph Curry says it all. Draymond, I can't even begin to explain that. Obviously, he thought that he was going to get fouled, but first and foremost, Dre, you already had a free throw line opportunity in the previous play where you bricked both of them. Did you think that you would get a 3-point call here? First of all, being who you are. Secondly, that you would hit all of them. Just what was going through your mind? 6 seconds left of the game to heave up a half-court shot with the hope that Dejounte Murray, who smartly went in and just pulled out because, I'm not doing this. Just an absolute bonehead moment galore that costs a potential opportunity for a Steph who just could not miss, and the Spurs are able to get away. I watched that game right after the Raptors won, and I just couldn't stop laughing, or I was pretty much on the floor. What did you take of that game?
At first when I watched the clip, I didn't personally watch the whole game. I had to, I missed it due to various reasons, but you showed me this clip. And at first I'm like, hey, this kind of makes sense. But then I realized, I was like, wait a minute. This is Draymond we're talking about. And you could see, in his defense, you could see White kind of almost hand checking. So I was like, okay, he has some merit there, but he forgot that he's Draymond. Now, apart from the fact that, Draymond coming back into the roster actually has helped the Golden State Warriors look so much more clean and amazing to watch. Yet again, the ball moves so greatly. It's the little things that really help, elevate this team. So as much as this is a sour bit and quite funny bit for us in a, remarkable performance by Steph Curry, let's not forget they have a back-to-back. They're playing today, and redemption time. Hopefully Curry can replicate or even come close, and the team altogether can play really, really well and limit those offensive boards, and just dial in and play that pacey game that they play.
Absolutely. And yeah, much like the Warriors in general, like we have seen a big turnaround, mostly because the other guys are really starting to get themselves back. And as much as, for instance, I like to just rag on Wiggins night in and night out because I just think he is absolutely terrible, to his credit, he has really turned this season around for him. Apart from the fact that he is getting to the line and converting it at as much as his free throw percentages, whatever, but 47% from the field, 38% from three. But get this, he is averaging 1.3 blocks a game to lead the Golden State Warriors on the defensive end, which is not something that has ever been associated with Andrew Wiggins. But it's funny because when he first came into the league, first of all, being the most hyped Canadian coming in, the reason he was so hyped was because of the upside that was seen in his potential as a defender. And for him not to have capitalized on it for these many years is pretty much a detriment to every team that he has been on. And as far as, what Minnesota used to try to do through him and the hopes that they had that Wiggins would be able to lead them somewhere, Cleveland obviously had drafted him, but the fact that they moved him right off, it's just one of those things where you would think Wiggins would be just raring to get himself recognized in the NBA, but it's just not been the case. But this is where I think Steve Kerr, who to me is an incredibly underrated coach because of the fact that people like to say that, he just rode, great team to whatever championships that they did. No, if you look at how Steve Kerr deals with especially his young guys. Like, there's so many moments in the game where they'll show him specifically going to sit down, like to a rookie. He'll just go and sit down next to him in the middle of the game and get into the nitty gritty of, where he feels he can improve, bucking them up, getting them going. And every Warriors player that's played under him has had nothing but incredible things to say about just how good of a people guy he is, and also just what an eye for detail that he has. So for him to really get Andrew Wiggins into the right spots as a defender, that has really turned it around. And then, like you said, you needed Draymond to be able to pick his game up, to really get himself back into that. Even though he's going to be a defense-first guy, you need to be able to, one, get the defenders to, again, keep you honest, not just leave you open wide alone. But he's not going to be Mr. Triple Single anymore. No. Can't be the case. And we saw that in the last couple of games. He had 15 assists in the game prior, 10 in this one, was on a triple-double watch. Funny enough, if he had hit that last three, he would have gotten his triple-double with a 10-10-10 game.
Maybe that's why he did it. Maybe.
Maybe.
But at the end of the day, let me explain one thing about Draymond and Steve Kerr, by the way, for those that don't understand, like, how nice of a guy do you have to be? How great of a guy do you have to be to take a punch from Michael and still be good friends with him? So the thing about Draymond is, and the Golden State roster as a whole, is you'll see a lot of new faces. Mm-hmm. When you have a lot of new faces, they're still learning the playbook. They're still learning how to, mesh with the rest of the team. And Curry being a main ball handler is, almost used to a system where, at any point, if he's not going, he could go to the next guy and be like, he's got Clay, right? Or he had KD, or he had, someone else who knew the system. Okay. So these new guys that are coming in are coming from teams that weren't good teams. We're not coached well. And so now they're coming into a situation where it's a fresh start for everyone. And so they're slowly learning. And, everybody was shitting on Kelly Oubre for having a horrible start to the season. But, I argue that he's one of the better wings in the game right now. And one of the reasons why is because, he could be a corner three guy for you. He could play defense on literally any wing in this league. And he has that mentality that a lot of guys won't have, which is that I'm going to go at their best players or whatever the situation is. And, over time, Bazemore is even looking good in the system now. Wiggins, as you said, is looking great in the system right now. And it's only a matter of time, just like it takes a while for the Raptors to get used to the new bodies. Yep. Same with Steph, same with Steve Kerr, and all these guys starting to mesh together. And it almost seems like nostalgia to see these guys perform at that level again. Like, see, the injuries and, seeing KD leave and, the whole Raptors championship, like, it was at the cost of the health of this team that, for so long started getting hated for being just too good, right? The anti-LeBron team. And quite honestly, it was a incredible time for basketball fans just to see how effortless and how smooth basketball could look in a quick-paced game. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do tonight,
Yeah, like every night to me, just watching the Warriors is always something that I like to do, despite whatever has been on there. And to me, that dynasty was some of the most fun basketball that I've seen in a long time, even if it was coming at the expense of some of the other superstars of the league. But I think that's why the Warriors historically have been one of those teams that people just don't like, because it's turned around what people think about the game of basketball, how it's meant to be played, how a jump shooting team can go ahead and be the best team in the league, can win a championship, Chuck, and can be just that damn destructive. But for them to keep doing it, like I said, they need Clay back. He's hopefully, 2 bad injuries there. They need him back. But for them, the future is definitely bright still. And I don't think their window is closed just yet, so don't count them out. Obviously not this year, but never know.
Speaking of future, this is what we're getting at, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Speaking of future, the Toronto Raptors star who just got injured, might be some conspiracies here, has listed his house in Toronto on sale. Kyle Lowry has listed his Toronto home on sale. What does this mean? What does it imply?
I hope it means absolutely nothing, because the fact is he hasn't been to this house in over a year now. It's been a COVID-stricken time where he's just obviously paying off this house. So I don't want to read too much into it, but you also can't not read into it, because there have been more than a few reports floating around about potential destinations where, for a guy who is still playing at such an elite level, he's 34, he's not getting any younger. He obviously can be a huge contributor on a team that is a championship-bound team. So could we be seeing the potential departure of the greatest Raptor of all time in Kyle Lowry? Could we be seeing a trade happening sometime in the near future? And the trade business has already started. The trade mills have already started moving. We already saw our first transaction of this year start as Derrick Rose once again not only goes back to the New York Knicks franchise, but he also goes back and reunites with his old coach, Tom Thibodeau. Yet again, obviously they love playing for each other. They love playing together. And the New York Knicks, who are one of the surprises of the season as far as their performance is concerned, are obviously looking for a playoff push. And to the unfortunate reality of Dennis Smith Jr., who is an incredibly hyped rookie coming in, not able to capitalize on that, he gets shipped off to Detroit, where maybe he'll have an opportunity to revive his NBA career. But for Derrick Rose, that is yet another opportunity to hopefully see another playoff run before his career is done.
Yeah, and what a place to do it. The place that, he got traded from his own home in Chicago. But, a lot of people will talk about how Derrick Rose, injuries and this and that, especially when he was in New York. The guy was playing at a high level still in New York, even coming back from those injuries. So the talk needs to stop about Derrick Rose, not being the same as he was before. He's just a more polished, elevated version of that Derrick Rose with a better jumper. And so one thing I will say is, if you want someone in the clutch, one of those guys that come into mind when it comes down to the wire is Derrick Rose. He's easily a guy who could take over the game. And him coming back to, of course, New York, I think that's almost like a statement piece by Thibodeau and the Knicks fans to let them know that Derrick Rose is going to actually be the starter. He's going to be that guy. And I really do think so. And you'll see that he'll have a central role on this team. And he has done an incredible job as a mentor for he used to be known as a very quiet guy, but he has done a lot. He's gone a long way in terms of being a mentor to a lot of these younger guys as a veteran on a team. And so I'm really excited to see what he does in the Big Apple again. Another thing, you mentioned about, Dennis Smith Jr. and, the tragedy of, what we were so excited to see and what, has come of his career. But I will argue a good friend of ours, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, had worked out with him this past summer in the offseason, trying to get his jumper up. And Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, if you guys don't know who he is, part of it is probably because of, some of the politics in the NBA back in the day. But we're not going to talk about the dark times. What we will talk about is who this guy was at the time that he was. He used to play for the Denver Nuggets, and he used to shoot lights out. He was the Curry before the Curry, okay? So when you work out with a guy like that, and if you guys don't know him, go check out his Big Three highlights.
He's still getting buckets.
He is the bucket getter. He was a cold guy who used to say, Inshallah, after every shot, baby, and rain it on their face. So anyway, the upside there is, one of the low points of Dennis Smith's, kit is his shot. So when you work with a guy who's really, really good and elite at shooting, that will help you start to, learn the fundamentals of shooting. And hopefully over time, if that's the thing that he starts to fix up and he starts to get an opportunity with Detroit, because he's going to be behind DeLon at this point, which is great for DeLon, by the way. We love DeLon, right? Former Raptor. He's going to get starting minutes now, which is really exciting for him. But if Dennis Smith Jr. is able to, start working that shot in game, you can see that he will really be dominant. And why I say that is because he is very good near the basket. He's very good at slashing, has very good handles. He's just missing a shot. And it's almost like a smaller version of Markelle Fultz. If Fultz had his shot, he'd be elite in this league. And that's just tragic what happens to these guys. They're pure hoopers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's just one of those situations where you go ahead and see just the kind of quality that can be there. But when you put so much pressure on a guy coming in, because Dennis Smith Jr. came in where it's like he's going to be the rookie of the year. He is going to be, his dunk compilations were just viral all over the internet, right? Just insane hops. And he was brought into Dallas with much fanfare. Obviously, all of that got eaten up and more by a player like Luka Doncic coming through. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have the capability to go ahead and do something. And as we see, we get a comment here as we talk about people that have just incredible potential, right? And thanks, Farouk Bhai, for bringing up that. Look, it's just one of those events, is unicorn of all unicorns. There's just no comparison.
No one comes close.
Michael Jordan, right? It's just
the closest guy was Kobe Bryant, in terms of the offensive, defense, the mentality, and everything like that. But there's no one who will ever compare to Michael Jordan. Impossible.
I wouldn't say impossible, but no doubt it is one of those where, look, when you're the GOAT, it's hard to be able to get that by.
Synonymous. Listen, Ali was the GOAT of boxing. Synonymous. You can't think boxing without Ali, right? Same thing with Michael Jordan. He is the Ali of basketball. And no matter what his stat line is, no matter who comes out, he will always, for the nostalgia boys and whoever else is a fan of the sport, will always associate GOATness and the greatest of all time to Michael Jordan.
Like I said, you'll see the odd move that definitely comes in. What comes to mind is when Kawhi had that up and under with the left. Last year, that was like, that's
Jamal Murray also had a great one.
Jamal had the same thing last year. So obviously there's plays that really bring back such people to mind, but that's him, man. That's him. But that being said, going back to what we were speaking about with regards to potential moves that are happening. So, you said Kyle Lowry has gone ahead and listed his home. I'm going to go ahead and say that he's not going anywhere at this moment. But in terms of teams that have potentially shown interest, some of the names that are coming up in the rumor mill have been teams like the Miami Heat, teams like the LA Clippers, ones that are clearly could use that kind of floor general onto the floor, especially when it gets to playoff time. So
Absolutely.
Let's put on our hypothetical hats over here and forget about our attachment to Kyle Lowry, which, by the way, I want to see him retire here. I don't think he should go anywhere. I feel his mentorship just brings so much, not only to Fred VanVleet, not only to Pascal Siakam, but just the engine that makes Toronto go. So there's so much more value than just purely his play, which remains absolutely elite. But if he is going somewhere, first of all, where do you think he would be the best fit based around the fact that he's likely wanting to go to a team that could win a championship? But where also would the Raptors be most potentially interested in terms of getting assets back?
So I'm not going to talk about the interest of the Raptors right now because we're talking about Kyle Lowry, who's the booty of the NBA, which is, of course, who wouldn't want him, okay? We explained in the diagram what I think of his booty, but we're not talking about that. We are talking about where he would end up being and best chance for success. Now, you have that comfort with the LA Clippers in the sense that, A, he's played with Kawhi and Serge before. And so Kyle actually resurged about his career when he came to Toronto with that really great pick and roll that they have going on. So it's a seamless transition. He's played with Kawhi, and that grit, that mentality of grit is in that team. But if I was to say a team that fits him the most perfect, and I think he'd be the perfect fit for, it's the Miami Heat. I think what he would do with Bam Adebayo and having a really good friend of his, Jimmy Butler, on the same team with a bunch of shooters around, it's pretty much game over. And Miami is a great defensive team also, which I can really respect. And so if I was to now, if you're going for a championship, you probably want to go with the Clippers. That's just my opinion. But Miami could use a guy like Kyle Lowry to potentially beat the Brooklyn Nets or the Boston Celtics, who I think are the two teams that may go to the finals.
Fair enough. And you know what? Miami is, to me, one of the top teams on the list too. The other one, just again, this is purely from a fit perspective, as well as, since I do like to think about assets that are coming back the other way, to me, the Milwaukee Bucks should be the ones that are truly looking to knock on the door of the Toronto Raptors if we are looking to make a move over into the other side of it and moving into the future for the Toronto Raptors. The Milwaukee Bucks, a team that, first of all, have gone all in, just re-signed Giannis to a 5-year deal. Big ups to Giannis for actually staying back with them, and a team that was in with thoughts of just we have to go over that ceiling that we've gotten to, right? Those conference finals, those second round exits. That's just not good enough anymore for what Milwaukee should really be doing with the talent that they have. And a lot of where they have struggled just up till now has always been in the half court. In that scenario where when Giannis's transition offense isn't working, when they aren't able to just purely bully you on the inside, and you need that little bit of shot creation on the other end, it's really just heavily reliant on Chris Middleton to be able to do that. And to his credit, Chris is awesome, but you need that other release valve. And to me, Kyle Lowry would be an excellent fit for exactly what the Milwaukee Bucks are looking to do. And in terms of assets that are coming back, I said, Drew is one option that will no doubt be involved in any trade that would happen, because that would be the one-to-one fit. Drew's younger. Drew's an excellent defender. He also is, very much similar to Kyle Lowry in terms of how they go about their game. Just incredibly professional, no nonsense guys who have always been just overlooked in the NBA for the amount of impact they have on their game. Kyle, though, being the much better shooter, will be that spacing that the Milwaukee Bucks would need from that position, while I think they have enough youth in players like Dante DiVincenzo, Pat Connaughton, like these guys that the Raptors would definitely be interested in as very, very useful assets on the way back. So if a trade is to happen, that's a potential place that I think could, but again, don't want it to. But Arham, one of our colleagues when we do live cricket shows, also a big basketball fan, lives out in Ottawa. Thanks very much for joining the show. Has talked about one of the surprises of the season, the Utah Jazz, number 1 seed in the West, have absolutely been incredible. Talked about them in earlier podcasts where, I think Donovan Mitchell deserves to be an all-star starter for the amount of effort and performance their team is giving. Just what do you think about the Utah Jazz?
I'd be a liar if I said I actually watched the Utah Jazz play.
Come on.
I really haven't dived into like their success. I mean, they've already had a pretty solid foundation for a while now with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and then the off piece of Joe Ingles, Uncle Ingles. But they had a very strong roster last year, and it's only something that they're building upon. Guys like Donovan Mitchell, like you've said, have been balling out and have really, really shown us how dominant, they can be for a team that has all the pieces. So last year you saw in the playoffs when he was going up against Jamal Murray, both of those guys just absolutely put on a show for a first round, 40, 50 point games.
Mm-hmm.
And Spida, we've always said, had the mentality. Now Shaq had, something else to say about that.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
I mean, we talk about the West and we talk about, teams that have the potential to almost dethrone the Lakers. Now, if we talk about purely a team stack for that, I would argue maybe the Clippers, Denver. Unfortunately, Utah does not make the cut for me. And as much as I enjoy seeing their success, do I think this is success that will continue in this season? Yes. But do I think that it translates into the playoffs? Probably not.
Well, see, I think this is actually interesting, especially because we were just talking about Kyle Lowry, which, if you don't know, back in 2019, when we got the Marc Gasol trade done and the one that sent Jonas Valanciunas over to the Memphis Grizzlies, there was another piece that was heavily discussed in which we could not only get Marc Gasol, but we would get another guy from the Memphis Grizzlies. That other guy that is now on the Utah Jazz had a disappointing season, has had injury concerns, but it has now, in this season, been an absolute focal point of the revival as far as the Utah Jazz is concerned, and that guy is Mike Conley. Just an absolute cerebral floor general, has always been one of my favorite guys to watch in the league. Just incredibly skilled. He has handles that, are right up there with some of the best guys in the league. And the fact that he's a lefty always added that little extra bit of mystery to how he goes about playing. But what I really liked about how this year has gone is that it was a bit of a transition last year. Mike Conley, who has always been, the go-to ball handler on every team that he's been on, it was a bit of a struggle, a bit of a shift into how the Utah Jazz went about it. They're much more of there's catch and shoot, and there's just a lot more of off-ball play, a lot more of just less of a guy being almost like, here, take the ball, make something happen. Kind of like Rondo also has had struggles with certain teams, right? Where it's like, that's how I play, that's how I'm most effective. But to Mike Conley's credit, and to Utah's credit as well, into understanding how to best use him, he has become just such an incredible facilitator for them, because it's become a situation where Donovan Mitchell, who has become better off ball, has had less requirement to be the sole ball handler. It's taken a lot of pressure off of him to be able to get those points up. And Mike Conley is now allowed to essentially go back to being Memphis Mike Conley. And that has been huge for the Utah Jazz. And, I'm actually going to disagree with you saying that their success doesn't translate over to the playoffs, because first and foremost, defense wins championships. And if there is a team in the league that you can always count on to be one of the most gritty defensive teams in the league, that is the Utah Jazz. But they have enough offense now, whether outside of the main guys. You obviously have Donovan Mitchell, but in Mike Conley, in Bojan Bogdanovic, and even a much more aggressive Rudy Gobert down in the box, you're finding that there are a lot more offensive opportunities that are being created for a team like Utah. And a guy that you've always hated and a guy that you have always said is not who you think he is in the NBA, Jordan Clarkson, is having an absolutely resurgent season. And he actually may be, in my opinion, right now, if I was to say sixth man of the year, Jordan Clarkson is my pick for the sixth man.
Yeah, man. I have him in fantasy, and it was like really a late pick. And to my credit, like, of course, I drafted him, so I must be onto something. But he was the best of the people that were left, and he's performing better than some of the guys I picked mid-round. And he's a pure scorer. We've known this. Like when he was on Cleveland, he would just attack. That's all you see him do is attack. But given the situation and how spread out the floor is with Utah, he's able to attack with effectiveness. And, he's a great one-on-one sort of player, and it's translating well into this team. But again, I'm going to keep going back to the same thing. You're not like Utah may be a really well defensive team, but at the end of the day, when the playoff time comes, the big dogs come out too,
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be as easy to score anymore. Your defense may be there, but then why is your defense letting Jamal Murray score 60 points?
Okay. Let's not throw that in there when Jamal was just on such a heater.
Doesn't matter. Someone else can be on a heater, and then
what happened in the Clippers series too. When the fact of the matter is, great offense will beat great defense because by definition, defense is reactive. So if someone is just that damn unstoppable at a time, things can happen. All the best you can do is to try and mitigate that, try and contain them, try and force them out of their hot spots. But when someone's just hidden, they're hidden. But by that same definition, Donovan Mitchell also had just an incredible series in that same 7 game, which was my favorite series of the playoffs last year. Could have gone either way. And I still believe that if Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz were able to pull past the Nuggets, they would have been the team representing the West in the conference finals alongside the Lakers, and not, where the Nuggets ended up. So it's just how it goes. It's small margins. And thanks very much for the question, Arham. The Utah Jazz are definitely one of the teams to watch for the season. That being said, we are coming to the end of our show. Thanks very much for everyone who's able to join in, bring in your comments, bring in your insight, and we love to be able to interact with you. As always, make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Swing Podcast, where not only are we live every post game with the Raptors, just to be able to get instant reactions about what we thought, what we saw, before we get to come here with a little bit more detail to break everything else down. But at the same time, SportsTrends, which is allowing us to have this platform to come on to here, come live on Facebook, come live on YouTube, and also on the IPTV channel, SportsTrends, you can go ahead and follow The Swing. So we will be back on Friday on SportsTrends again to be able to break down more of what's been going on with the NBA, how the Raptors made out in the rest of their games this week, if there have been any more transactions, if there's any more rumors, and what is happening in the NBA. Just tune in, always stay up to date with us, interact with us, and we will see you on the next one. Until then, take care and peace.
Simmons, is this the dragon?